Hey Axis and Allies players, the good captain here. Welcome to episode 7 in my Axis and Allies Clinic series. This video is going to be a detailed criticism of the concept known in Axis and Allies as low luck dice. The agenda for this video is as follows. First, I'll define what low luck dice is for those who don't know. And then I'll discuss why some players feel that it might be valuable or interesting to use in games of Axis and Allies. From there, I'll transition into tearing down the concept with 3 arguments. First, I'll actually show you how the math really works in low luck in a way that you can see how the disparity is created. Next, I'll demonstrate how that disparity contributes to creating imbalance by setting up battles with identical pieces and then comparing the differences in terms of outcome. Then I'll highlight one other really negative effect that low luck causes that has little to do with the math, but demonstrates one of the other bad habits that it can create. And finally, before I close, I'll offer a solution to fix low luck dice. So I've tried to cut this video a few different ways, but it looks like the best way to do this is with a PowerPoint presentation. But before I transition over to the computer, as a disclaimer, after I define low luck, the first argument in this video will be reviewing some graphs. I promise to move through that portion as interestingly and as quickly as possible, but if you really can't stand a brief discussion on probability and looking at some graphs, click the timestamp in the description box below to jump to the battle outcome comparisons argument. That one pretty much stands on its own and is pretty clear-cut and quite damning to low luck. So that's it. Let's go ahead and transition to the slides. To define low luck, I've found it best to demonstrate it via example. So I have some pieces set up on the board here, and we're going to assume we're the German player and we are attacking a Russian defender. So first we're going to run this sample battle as though we were using the out-of-box rules, also known as pure luck. And as we all know, the German player would roll 3 dice for his infantry, hoping to score 1s, and then roll 3 or less for each of his tanks. The defender would apply casualties, roll back his 3 infantry at 2 or less, the attacker would select his casualties, and then determine if he's doing another round of combat or a retreat. Everybody knows how this works. So now let's run the same example, but with low luck. In this case, what we're going to do is sum the values of the pieces and arrive at a whole number. So in the case of the Germans, we will count 1 for each infantry and 3 for each tank, for a total of 9. The next step in this process is to divide this number by the number of sides of the dice that you're using in this game. So we're assuming we're going to use a D6, so we're going to divide by 6, but your version of Axis and Allies might use D8 or D10, and so you would divide by that number. The whole number in this case is your guaranteed number of kills, and the remainder is the dice that you will roll to see if you pick up 1 extra kill. So the Germans in this case will kill 1 Russian piece, and then roll a dice, and at 3 or less they'll pick up a second Russian piece. The defender then does this same math, and in this case it's very simple. The Russian player has 6, divide by 6, and that's 1 kill. So the Russian player won't roll any extra dice. So why might some players choose to use this method of casualty determination? Well, first and foremost, there are a lot of players who are tired of getting diced. If we take the previous example, just imagine we're the German player and you throw all 5 dice into the tray and get 0 hits. Worse still, your opponent throws his dice into the tray and he gets 3 hits. This can be really frustrating, and it can feel like the game was tanked not because someone performed a bad strategy, but because someone got diced. Low luck, in effect, makes things more fair, right? You're guaranteed not to completely whiff your round, and you're also guaranteed not to completely dice the other guy. Another reason might be for playtesting. Maybe you're prepping for a tournament and you want to come up with a competitive strategy, or you're developing house rules for your playgroup, or you're just doing game development in general. All low luck really is determining the average number of hits in a round of combat, so how could this not be fair? It seems like a very robust way of measuring most likely outcomes. Well, the rest of this video is going to demonstrate how that's not entirely true. Not only is it not entirely true, but it seems to be quite misleading. So now I'm going to transition to my teardown of this game concept by first demonstrating the problem with low luck when we compare it to pure luck or the out-of-box rules. I'm hoping to make it so that you can actually see the problem using some graphs. But as mentioned at the top of this video, if this is not interesting to you, click the link in the description box below It'll skip to the battle examples, which by themselves are quite damning to the low luck concept. So the best way that I've found to see the problem is to compare infantry to tanks, because low luck consider these equal when they're attacking. In other words, 2 attacking tanks and 6 attacking infantry will both get exactly 1 kill. Now below each of these piece types, we have the graphs for when you're using pure luck. So now we're in a good position to do a side-by-side comparison. In pure luck, you have a range of outcomes, but in low luck, you have only one. And since low luck shoves all the results into the one column, let's start by comparing these 2 columns. So when you're rolling for 2 tanks normally, you can expect 1 hit 50% of the time. And when rolling 6 infantry normally, you can expect 1 hit 40% of the time. Low luck boosts these results to 100% in both columns. So already you can see that the infantry are boosted by nearly 10% when compared to the tanks when we transition to low luck outcomes. So already there seems to be a disparity, but perhaps that's made up for somewhere else on this graph. Let's do a comparison with a different column. Let's use the 0 column here. So again, when we use pure luck, 2 tanks will miss 25% of the time, and 6 infantry will miss 33.5% of the time. And since low luck drops these columns to 0, once again we see a gain for the infantry. The infantry gain 8.5% more than the armor. So it seems that the infantry gain in the 1 column, they gain in the 0 column, and so now you're probably thinking, come on, Captain, it's obvious. The infantry can do one thing the tanks can never do. They can get multiple hits in ways that the tanks just can't. That seems like a good idea, so let's do this. Let's compare everything to the right of the 1 to everything to the left of the 1. In other words, what are these 2 groups giving up in order to ensure that they get 1 kill? Well, for the armor, it's pretty simple. They're giving up the ability to score 2 hits at 25% for the ability to score 0 hits at 25%. So it's a 1-for-1 swap. Seems like a fair trade. Okay, let's do this same example, but with the infantry. Let's add up everything to the right of the 1 and compare it to everything to the left of the 1. And as we can see, the infantry's ability to score 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 hits all added up is well under its ability to score 0 hits. And this is the beating heart of the low luck lie. This is the problem with using this method of allocating casualties. This is how you smuggle in imbalance. This is how what might work and seem like good strategy when using low luck can fall to pieces when you're at a tournament that's using the out-of-box rules. We're just about done with the graphs, but I just want to show you this. Just notice these 2 graphs. This is 2 tanks and 4 tanks. Look at how symmetrical they are and how mirror opposite they are, right? 4 tanks are as able to score 3 hits as 1 hit, 4 hits as 0 hits. It's very symmetrical. And that makes sense, right? Because they cover the 3, 2, and the 1 on the dice, and that's essentially a coin flip. But when we compare larger groups of infantry, one thing that becomes clear is that the left side of the graph is always going to be a higher percentage than the right side. 12 infantry and 8 infantry. Look at these numbers. Everything to the left of the average column is a higher probability than everything added up to the right. So the best way to describe this naturally occurring phenomena is as follows. Units that hit at less than 3 have a higher probability of shooting under their average than shooting over their average. So infantry, artillery, submarines, destroyers, in groups, these things are more likely to shoot under than to shoot over. They're more likely to have a cold roll than a hot roll. And this is something low luck is blind to. Low luck does not compensate for this naturally occurring disparity. So if you're not convinced of that argument or you don't think it matters, I'm now going to move to my second argument where we'll use a battle calculator to compare battles with the exact same pieces, and we're just going to flip between low luck and pure luck to observe the results. To do this, we're going to use the AAA battle calculator, which runs 20,000 battles and spits out data regarding the results from those 20,000 battles. It has many, many features that make it the absolute best calculator that we have in the community to date. And of course, one of those abilities is to flip between low luck and pure luck. So the first battle that we're going to set up is one that I call the Belarusian bump. This is something that I advocate that the Russian player do when playing Axis and Allies Anniversary. This is essentially a hypothetical German attack on G2 into Belarusia. And the point of this is not to discuss whether anyone would do this or not. It's to look at the percentage chance of a win under pure luck conditions. This is the out-of-box normal rules conditions. The attacker wins, as you can see in the red bubble, 36% of the time. The other red bubble is circling the average IPC loss for the attacker. We're not going to look at that right now. Again, we're just going to acknowledge that using out-of-box rules under pure luck, the attacker would win in this hypothetical situation 36% of the time. I'm now going to click my mouse and switch it over to the low luck result. And there it is. You can see that it dropped by 26% to a 10% chance of the attacker winning. It went from not the best attack to a very, very bad one. This is an overall net drop of 26%. And that's really it. I just want everyone to see that if you're using low luck, you're going to get a different result when you fight your battles. It's just not the same. But let's do another one. Let's go to one from Axis and Allies Classic. Now, this is an Eastern Europe defense that I advocate for as the German player. In this case, it's the Russians that have the turn 2 option to attack. Here's the pieces we're going to be using for this example. And using the out-of-box rules, using pure luck, the Russians have a 55% chance to win, and the unit value exchange is roughly equal. That's the second red bubble. I'm going to click it over. And as you can see, or if you can't, the percentage for the attacker boosted by 9%, and the tub swing went 3 pieces in favor of the Russians. This went from a very risky defense for the Germans to a very, very bad one. I can keep running these examples over and over with various pieces and various situations, but I'll just cut to the chase and say that even at low piece counts, you can still see some kind of disparity. And as we've seen, it can vary from something under 10%, like this example, or something like the previous one, which was a huge 26% change in outcome. And so I'll just pause here right now and ask you, the listener, is this good? Is this helpful in becoming a better player for Axis and Allies? Is this helpful for playtesting strategies, house rules, or development? I submit that it's not. I don't see what's good in misleading yourself or thinking that this makes you a better player, or that you're creating balance when you run games through this engine. I'm very tempted to just end the argument here. I think this is enough to lock up this concept and throw away the key, but I'm not someone who's above kicking a bad idea while it's down. I've got one more argument I want to deploy, and this has really almost nothing to do with the numbers, and that's to review this question. Where does the risk go with low luck? So let me set up a hypothetical situation for you. Just think you're playing a game of Global 1940 2nd edition, and it is a tight game. It is coming down to the last few turns, and you're the American player. And suddenly you see your opponent make this move, where he exposes 4 tanks to an attack by our American forces. And maybe we don't need these 2 infantry that we can send in to the attack, but we do need these bombers. Let's say these bombers are absolutely vital. But the German player really needs those 4 tanks. And when using out-of-box rules, this is actually a really tough decision. Yeah, we understand the Germans are only likely to get 2 kills, but maybe we're really good at assessing numbers, and we actually understand the Germans have a 31% chance of scoring 3 or more hits. And this is really just unacceptable. And so we sit and we think and we discuss with our teammates, should we risk 1 or even 2 bombers to destruction that might end the game in the Axis favor by doing this? What's the cost of not attacking? What if we let those tanks go? Are we risking losing the game by not attacking? This is a very natural thought process when using pure luck, when using the out-of-box rules. But let's back it up and look at the same thing with low luck. Now there is no problem. There's no question about what we want to do. We're going to send this attack on in, knowing the Germans cannot score more than 2 hits. And at the very least, we're going to exchange these 2 infantry for 2 of his tanks, and we might even pick up a 3rd. This hypothetical situation is now a no-brainer. Again, I submit that this is not helping make Axis and Allies players better or more competitive. I don't think this is a good way to develop strategy or develop games or house rules. And although this doesn't exhaust my critique of this rather silly method of determining casualties, I'm going to put a pin in it here and start to wrap up this video. But before I do, I want to do one more thing. I want to offer a solution. I don't like being somebody who just wants to point out a problem without at least offering some kind of a fix. So my first recommendation is not to use low luck, but to use a battle calculator. I already have a video titled In Defense of Battle Calculators, so I'm not going to rehash that here. Suffice to say that battle calculators actually will make you a better player because they won't smuggle in this disparity. They won't lie to you or twist the truth. And if you have a good one like the one that's on AAA, you'll learn quickly how much information you can actually extrapolate from it in order to arrive at development of better rules, strategies, etc. With that said, if someone forced me to play a game of low luck, but said that I could try to tweak it to make it more fair, this is how I would do it. Since things that hit at 3 or less are essentially a coin flip, this is the standard by which all other units should try to align themselves. So since 2 tanks get at least one hit 75% of the time, that should be the gold standard. And in comparison, 6 infantry get a hit at least 65.5% of the time. So there's a disparity there that really is only made up by adding 2 more infantry. The reality is that true equality, when ramming everything into the 1 column in terms of outcome, is arrived at when infantry are at 8 compared to 2 armor. I understand there might be questions about how do you translate that into a remainder for a d6. My quick answer is just to round that fraction to the nearest whole number on the dice. And now we'll close with these 2 final comments. If this whole process of adding things up and dividing by 6 sounds familiar, it is probably because this is a very common way to arrive at the average result for any group of attacking pieces. In fact, you or someone you know probably does this pretty regularly. They will add up all their pips, divide by 6, arrive at a number, and use that as an expectation in the forthcoming battle. It's a useful tool, but again, it can fall victim to the same problems I've discussed in this video. Yes, it will give you the center line of the bell curve. It will give you the average number of hits that you can expect. It doesn't say anything about what's going on to the left or to the right in terms of probability. And my final note is that the direct inspiration for this video on low luck came from this version of Axis and Allies. If there's one version of Axis and Allies that appears to have been designed thoroughly with low luck, it's got to be Axis and Allies D-Day. This is because the Allied side in that game is saturated with low-powered units that hit at 1 and 2, whereas the Germans are generally fighting with units that have a power of 2 and 3. Games played with low luck seem to come down to the last turn. Games played without it see a higher likelihood of Allied losses. That, of course, is coming in my Axis and Allies D-Day series, so we'll continue that conversation later. So to recap, this was my argument against low luck dice. I opened this video by demonstrating how you can see the disparity between low luck and pure luck using some graphs. I then transitioned to an argument on how you can see it using actual battles over the board using a battle calculator and switching between low luck and pure luck. And then I closed with an argument that had to do more with highlighting that the risk really sort of leaves the game, and in effect you're almost playing a different game at a certain point. I think all of this is extraordinarily unhelpful and unhealthy, and I hope this video was at least interesting, if nothing else. At any rate, please let me know what you think about low luck in the comments section below. Thanks for watching this, all the best from the good captain, and bye-bye.